Welcome to Backstage Pass with Gail Davis, your invitation into the world of keynote speaking and event planning expertise. Join us as we pull back the curtain and dive into exclusive interviews with speaking industry experts. From seasoned speakers to master event planners, we're here to provide you with the ultimate backstage experience. Get ready to unlock valuable insights, tips, and strategies that will elevate your events and leave your audience inspired. Hello, my name is Gail Davis, and welcome to Backstage Pass. Our guest today is Lisa Bodell, and I am really looking forward to this conversation. As we were preparing, one of my employees said to me, you know, Gail, I think Lisa might be my all-time favorite speaker. So when you hear something like that, you know we're in for a lot of good content. So Lisa, I'm so glad you're here.
Gail, I am so glad to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Our team has booked you over 14 times, and I'm going to give just a little bit of background on who you are before we start our conversation.
Right.
Lisa is a futurist and a global leader on simplification, collaboration, and innovation. Yesterday, I realized how hard it is for me to say the word simplification. And I think it's because I am so hardwired to overschedule, overcommit, and overdo. So I need this as much as anybody that's listening. I know that for sure.
I'm here for it.
That's great. She takes the concepts of simplification and also collaboration and innovation, and has now realized how all that ties into well-being. So we'll be diving into that. She ranks one of the top 50 speakers worldwide. She is the founder and CEO of Future Think, which is the world's largest source of simplification and innovation tools and training, a two-time best-selling author. And what Lisa does is she shows organizations how to eliminate complexity through the power of simplicity. And I'm actually going to say that again because truly, all joking aside, it's something I've really been working on. Eliminate complexity through the power of simplicity. And that in turn allows all of us to unleash our creativity. It sparks our energy, which is essential to innovate and compete in a rapidly changing world. So welcome, Lisa. I'm so eager to dive into all of your thought leadership on this topic.
Oh, Gail, I am here for it. Let's simplify. Thanks for having me.
It's funny, this morning, Michaela was like, what are you doing? And I was like, just cleaning off every file, throwing things away. And she said, what's going on? I said, getting
prepared,
podcast,
getting revved up. Well, we'll talk about that. That's a common thing. Like people say simplify and they just start cleaning things out, but it's cathartic. It feels good.
Cathartic. Right? It's very cathartic. I really don't know that I can think of a more timely and applicable topic than just that concept of simplicity. So why don't we start off with listeners, with you sharing with the listeners more of what this topic means and how you weave it into your content.
Well, it is timely though, Gail. I mean, you said it because people, as I like to say, work is at a breaking point and so are people. And, you know, we are overwhelmed right now, not just coming through COVID, but also in the fact that we are time starved. We live in a culture, and I don't just mean Western culture, I mean globally, where we are connected all the time. And we feel that we always have to be on. And I know that resonates with everybody. I don't speak to anyone that says, no, I'm fine. I don't have any complexity in my life. It's very, it's very pervasive. But I think what people confuse is they think that it's just about productivity. And like you said, you were throwing stuff out and going through things. It feels really good. But usually what people are thinking is I've got to be more productive and I've got to be more organized. And a couple things to think about is, being organized isn't being simplified. Because if just being organized was it, you would be able to create a spreadsheet and get your way out of this, but you can't. And the other thing is we have such a culture of busy that we think it's about addition, not about subtraction. So building in subtraction into how we work and making that valuable for people it's not just cathartic, it's a well-being and cultural perspective that really helps people at work. So I hope that they take that away, that sure, it'll get them time back, but they'll feel better too.
The first time, I'm not sure how many times you've been to our office, but the first time you were here, you gave me this handout.
Oh, okay.
And I have kept it on my desk because this is a problem for me. And for those of you that are just listening, it says 40 amazing ways to say no.
Mhm.
And I guess I have a little bit of FOMO, or am I an opportunist? So someone could invite me to go to this luncheon and I'm like, oh, I should go. That might be good for GDA. I might meet someone there. Maybe there's a potential client. And I end up saying yes to everything. And when you get 25 years under your belt, a lot of people are calling and asking for favors. And a lot of people are calling and wanting to be speakers. And, I got my start by helping somebody who wasn't a speaker. So how, I struggle with how do I say no? And on this great handout, which look, the corner's torn, there's a coffee stain on it. There are just 40 polite ways to say no.
That's
And
right.
At the very bottom, I wrote down this one that I really loved. I would not be able to bring the fullness of my presence.
Very good. That's
that's good. That's so good.
Well, it's funny that you picked that out because I just had a webinar this morning with Novartis. I do a lot of work with them.
Yes.
And the biggest question I got was, how can I start saying no? And I literally sent them, the latest version of that tool. And what was interesting is, you're the boss, right? I'm the boss. So we can say no, but it's still hard for us.
Mm-hmm.
And, what I heard you say is, you want to be an opportunist. You want to have the time to think, well, maybe I can do that. I have the time to do it rather than it's an obligatory thing.
Yes.
And that means you've identified that thing as something that might be meaningful. The problem is when you're drowning in things that aren't meaningful that you feel you have to say yes to. So we want to make sure that people, first of all, define what's meaningful and what's not, because then they can understand what they'll say yes to and what they'll say no to. But also for the people who can't really say no, we've got to teach them yes if. And that means it's kind of like the one you just said. Yes, I could do it if I had more time or if you would take away another priority. So what that does is it puts it back on the other person to make the trade-off rather than making it your problem. We need to be not more selfish with our time, more protective of our time. And we have to do it. It's okay. It's not a selfish thing to do.
You mentioned that you and I are both the bosses. Well, I love the characteristic of an employee because I'll come up with a million ideas. And when do I want it? Well, like in 5 minutes. And I love an employee that will look at me and go, they use the yes and. They're like, I'm happy to do that, but I'm going to need to drop these 5 other things we agreed to. I respect that so much. And then I'm like, oh yeah, you know what? I actually would like you to prioritize this. Or no, nope. Your priorities are right. Put it over there for later. And I think so many people are afraid to push back to the boss. I hate that term, but to whoever they report to and say, yes, but I love
Yes,
that.
that's right. And so they can still feel it's in a positive mindset and that they want to do it. They really do. They just don't want to sacrifice something else and not bring their full self. So I'm glad you liked that one. Actually, that's one of my favorites too.
When you talk about full self and we think of you in a corporate setting, I'm assuming that this content applies to the work environment, but also there's great takeaway for people's personal lives.
Yes, both. And that's what's so interesting is it's getting your time back, right, for what matters. So I'll say to people, what do you wish you could spend your time doing? And when people answer that, they don't just say work things, right? They want their time back for example, in this Novartis speech I did this morning, spend time with my family, for more happiness, for peace, for calmness. And this is bringing me around to, if you're not stressed so much or burned out at work, you can bring your whole self to everything in and outside of work. So this is just as much about preserving time as it is about preserving energy. And that's why we want people to be more selfish with their time, because you know what? Then you'll be able to be a better mom. I can be a better wife. And people can be a better boss when I'm not so stressed and I'm doing things that I like, not that I hate or feel obligated to do.
How are you weaving in? I know you're very interested in mental health and wellness. So how are you weaving in that into this topic?
Well, it's interesting because I talk about this a lot with the leaders, is that don't go to your teams and say, we're going to simplify because I need you to be more efficient. It's so insulting to people because I am efficient. I am an adult. It's that I don't have enough time. You keep putting so much more crap on my plate. So what we talk about is simplification is about meaningful work, and it's about the culture. It's the work you do every day, right? If your culture, if you spend your day doing meetings and emails, Gail, then that's your culture. If it's finding incredible new speakers, that's your culture, and people are more engaged and they're happier. So what I want people to think about is this is a cultural initiative. When people are happier, they trust more, they have less fear, they have less stress, they report 20% less burnout, and they're more likely to stay at their job. It's a retention strategy. If I have happier employees, they stay at work, and I love that. It costs me less money in the long run anyway. So
absolutely.
Wellness issue for sure.
I love that it's a retention issue. That's true.
100%.
I know, and sometimes people will say, but I'm working so hard. And I think that, the old adage, it's not about working hard, it's about working smarter. Does that kind of play into this simplicity?
It does, because, it's not about doing things right. It's about doing the right things. And
say that again.
Sure. It's not just about doing things right. It's about doing the right things. So that gets back to organize, not simplify. It doesn't matter how many things I get done if they weren't the priorities in the first place. There's a dopamine hit, right? Getting all that stuff done on your to-do list, but it's just as powerful to make a to-don't list and really get in the habit of that, saying no, or not feeling that you have to fill your calendar to be worthy. Like you mentioned FOMO. A lot of people have FOMO. They say they don't want to be in meetings, but then when they're not invited, oh, I must not be impactful anymore. So we've got to change our mindset just as much as everyone else does.
And when people have good boundaries, I mean, even speakers, I'm thinking of one very well-known speaker who might have a couple of podcasts, a bunch of best-selling books, and she's known for her boundaries. And every time we submit an offer, we're all like, okay, we're submitting this offer, and we're crossing our fingers because we know there's a process. We know there's a team. We know it has to hit on this point, this point, this point, and this point to even be considered. And she may or may not say yes. Well, it just makes everybody want her more.
Well, that, and when she does deliver, it's going to be
It's amazing. It's amazing.
Right. Versus the people that say yes to everything. And then you're like, God, I hope they're not too stressed out to deliver this thing, because they really don't care. They just got to check it off their list.
Yeah.
So I think it drives engagement. I'm much happier when people tell me their boundaries. It's clear. It's clear.
I love it. I was looking over your bio earlier, and you have some really, really big names. Google, Pfizer, you mentioned Novartis, Citigroup, the Department of National Intelligence, Lockheed Martin. Are there specific industries that you find this message really resonates with and have created a sweet spot, if you will?
So there's two ways I'd answer that. So simplicity is agnostic. That's what I would say first. So it is, because it's a human behavior, right? We add one more thing because we're trying to move fast, and we don't mean to create complexity, but we create the beast that we become a slave to. It's human. So we have complexity in every industry, but the ones that love the message the most are the regulated industries. The reason we do so much with pharma and banks and intelligence and manufacturing is because their excuse is, oh, we can't do that, we're regulated. And I call BS, because when people tell you what they spend their day doing, they don't say, well, we're regulated. Because if that was true, actually, why can Pfizer do it, but Novartis can't, right? The same regulations. Or they'll say, well, we're big. And I'll say, yeah, but other big companies can do it. When you ask them what they spend their day doing, Gail, it's meetings and emails, and it's stuff in their sphere of control. And so we've got to get them out of the mindset of regulation is the excuse. And when they realize they have more in their control than they think, they get really jazzed, right? Because they can impact the how.
I love that. What's the one thing you wish every meeting planner knew about your message?
Well, I think there's, most of all, it's about, I say, it's not a productivity message. This is not about time management. Because if that was the case, all the HBR articles and 12-step programs and, productivity gurus would have solved this problem. And it has not happened, right? You can't spreadsheet your way out of this thing or color code your calendar out of this. This is about, we underestimate the fact that it's important to do good work, and we underestimate the impact of doing more work that matters. If we can help people do that, we solve a hell of a lot of problems.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love that.
Thanks. I love it.
And it's really an age-old problem. I have this distinct memory that just keeps coming up as you're talking of being like in fourth grade. And at that time, I think my mom was still a stay-at-home mom, but she was volunteering for everything under the sun. I think she was PTA president and she was doing this at the church and that. And she was feeling a little stressed because she also had this super obligation to have dinner on the table every night.
Sure.
And I remember my dad saying, and I guess the apple doesn't fall far from the tree now that I think about it, but I remember
I was
him
just
saying,
going to say,
Barbara, the simplest word in the English language is 2 letters. No. You do not have to say yes to everything. So it's funny. I mean, some people are just wired to say yes.
well, that's funny that you said that because someone said, you know how you spell love, S-I-M-P-L-E, simple. I mean, it's just like if you give people the ability to control their time and do the things that they love, they are better in terms of giving back. I mean, it sounds very Zen, but it's true, right? When we feel valued and we feel that our time is valued, we are more likely to engage. I mean,
right.
There's numerous studies too. I am more happy to deal with brands and companies that value my time, and I'll pay more for it too. So
That's awesome.
it's the same with people.
Well, okay. So let's go a little behind the scenes. You're this simplicity guru. How do you apply these principles to your own personal life, especially speakers who travel that's so demanding?
I think you said it with boundaries. That's number one, which is I only do certain speeches and I only do certain lengths of speeches. So I try to put the boundary around how much I have to customize or not, right? I think the other thing for me was I used yes if a lot because it got me out of those obligations like your mom. You know, when my kids are now grown and flown, right? I'm an empty nester, but it was saying no to carpools and realizing the implications of it. But frankly, if those people didn't like the fact that I said no to them because I knew I was going to do the majority of the driving anyway, tough, right? I needed to protect my time. I was so crazy with the carpool crap. So I started to say no to things slowly, once a week. The other thing I'd tell you is at work, I started doing it by telling 2 things. One, I mandate deep work. So I do this for me at home and I do at work, which is every person at my company has to put half a day on their calendar for thinking. So I don't want them hiding thinking time on their calendar. They must, it's mandatory that they have deep work on their calendar. And I do that for me too, Gail, because I'm a writer, right? So I have to have deep thinking time where I can really write. So that's a personal and professional one. The other thing I'll tell you I do is I kill stupid rules with my team every quarter. And it is cathartic. So we get together once a quarter as a team in person. Our offices are here in the Chrysler Building, and everyone looks forward to this. The end of our full day meeting is killing stupid rules, and the rules they come up with are always my stupid rules. The thing the boss, but it'll be yours too, Gail. And at first you want to be defensive because
yeah.
what are you talking about? Those aren't stupid, but they are. And the second thing you realize is the way I know that it's working is every time we get back together, it's harder for them to come up with new rules. It's hard because they're like, well, we've killed so many of them. And that to me is a sign of a good leader of tell me what you hate and let's get rid of it. And if they can't come up with something, well, 1, don't complain. And 2, you have you have a forum. Let's do this. So that's a cool thing for people listening to try because people know you're serious about it.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I know you've spoken to over 100,000 people every year, so you've probably seen it all. What do you think makes an event a home run? I'm going to ask it 2-pronged. From a speaker's perspective, because clients will ask me that, like, how can we make sure the speaker has a good experience? But also from the attendee side, what makes an event a home run? Attendee, speaker.
So I think it's, well, first of all, authenticity. I think that's a big, big deal. So I try to I call it like my Midwestern presence. I am very practical, but I can be very self-deprecating and funny. And I think that's nice and disarming to people. They want to relate to you. So authentic is big, right? I think humor is big too, because sometimes I don't know, Gail, people take themselves so seriously.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, what are we really doing here? So humor helps, but also interactivity, because people are time starved and everyone has ADD. So I got to be able to grab them and interact with them and show them that I'm listening to them in a way that everyone can feel included. So that to me is really good as a participant. For me as a speaker, having an audience that is open to your message, obviously. So being in a room with professional skeptics is always hard, but fun. Believe me, sometimes when I'm with all the scientists, they don't want to hear my message on complexity because they think everything's complex no matter what.
Right.
You can turn them around. And the other thing I think is the energy in the room. So I think having a really fun group always brings it for the entertainer, because then I get energy off their energy.
That's awesome. That's awesome. What's the most surprising thing that you've learned about yourself through being a public speaker?
I think telling personal stories is much more important than I realized. And because, there are speakers that are, Gail, their message is their personal story, like they were in a plane crash, or they were, they grew up in this kind of home. And I'm a very pragmatic person. And as someone who values people's time, I want to get to it and help them solve it. But to get them there, they have to be authentic, relate to you first. And I think really being vulnerable and showing authentic stories is something I underestimated, and I'm doing a lot more of. It feels good too.
Yeah. People want to relate to the speaker.
100%.
100%. Well, my friend, I relate to you, and you've helped me a lot, and you will continue to help me. I guess we're going to have to implement this kill the stupid rules.
Get ready. Put on that armor, Gail. Get ready. It's so fun. Your team's amazing. And I love talking with you. Congrats on your 25th.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. And I know all our listeners will enjoy this. And the next time you're in the office, I hope I'm here and I get to catch you.
I can't wait. Thanks,
okay.
Gail.
Bye. Thank you for joining us on Backstage Pass with Gail Davis. Tune in for more exclusive interviews and pro tips to elevate your events. Don't forget to subscribe and share your thoughts with us. We'll catch you next time behind the curtain on Backstage Pass.